We are live all over the planet. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Social Authority Marketing Monday edition with your boy Pat Hilton and Zach Hoffman. Zach, how's it going?
Doing well, Pat. How are you doing?
Dude, awesome, man. Thank you for joining me once again to bring some value on Monday morning to the people of the world. So you had a busy week last week in LA and you're flying to New York tomorrow, you said. So how's that all looking?
For sure. Everything's looking great, man. Definitely have a couple trade shows planned here in the hopper. Going to Legal Week next week and then ABA Tech the following week in Chicago. So busy
You're all
schedule.
over the place.
And,
I love it.
Yeah. Just the trade shows happen to be all at the same time. So
yeah, totally.
We will be out there in force.
Yeah, I mean, it is becoming event season. As someone who bounces around from event to event, and I have since I was a kid, being a musician or whatever. I mean, that the winter months dries up for a minute there, and then about April through, I don't know, about November, it's event season. And so I'm very excited about that as well. I got a bunch of cool stuff coming up. So nice. What do we got on the bullet points today, Zach? The king of the bullet points. What do we got?
So we have a couple of interesting topics. Definitely influencers started with Beast Games. They're really taking the networks by storm, essentially penetrating that area of just the interest. Then you have Unilever basically amping up their social media spend, pledging to spend 50% of their marketing budget, which is in the billions, on social media. A lot of that going towards influencers. We'll see if they could even spend it. And then Skype, after, about 15 years being under the watch of Microsoft, is going to be shut down, so they say, coming up here in May. So we'll see if that actually happens.
Is that because Google Meets or Microsoft Teams or whatever has kind of replaced the product? Why is that?
I mean, probably that's one aspect of it, but they also say a lack of features. I know, for example, for ourselves, we basically went ghost town on Skype at some point, basically taking everything to Slack as a communication channel and never looking back at Slack, at Skype again. I use Skype for some phone calls here and there, and it does have its purpose. But then you have WhatsApp that also makes phone calls.
I was about to say that WhatsApp kind of came along and took all the best features of Skype and turned it into a mobile app that's really, really convenient.
For sure. Yeah. So, you see that with a lot of these communication platforms. You see them come and then you see them get, essentially, the
feature set gets kind of competed with.
The crowd moves in droves, it's like it can basically go ghost overnight. So it's pretty wild as to how it happens. But, essentially, to kick it off here, the influencer game, which is led by Mr. Beast, who held Beast Games over on Amazon. He is looking for people to essentially bid on his second and third season. I believe his asking price right now is $150 million per season. Now, they say those dollars go towards the actual production and the actual prize. But, this is a guy who put his own dollars and resources back into production repeatedly, ongoing, until, these bigger production houses came along and basically have said, hey, we want your show on air where we are. So Amazon's bidding pretty heavily. Amazon said the partnership was effective, they believe, for that first season of Beast Games. And the reason that Amazon's saying they're believing that Amazon is probably the best place for a lot of these influencers to go to get the deals, because Amazon has the ability to cross-sell products or opportunities beyond just the show itself.
Yeah, dude, Amazon has become such a powerhouse in every single category, and it's just they're just not going anywhere. They're essentially like the Walmart of digital distribution.
Yeah, definitely. But you also have, what's that?
You know what I mean? Kind of.
Oh, for sure. You have a number of other media companies basically trying to get, some of these influencers on the network. So you have Peacock, you have YouTube, Amazon, and Disney, essentially all trying to bid after the same shows, because you also have Dude Perfect out there. You have a guy named Mark Rober who's got something called Crunch Labs, which is like a subscription science base. He's an ex-NASA engineer that does shows. So they're producing the content on YouTube in a lot of ways, like for free, making some ad revenue, ad dollars off of there. And then essentially they've been parlaying it back into production. But now you're looking at, a whole nother ball game because essentially they didn't really, the influencers didn't get a lot of attention in Hollywood. But now all of a sudden, they are becoming Hollywood and they are the ones getting the big dollars and big resources for the production and for the shows coming out. It's going to be interesting because they've bootstrapped a lot of great production. Now, what are they going to be doing with actual budgets when it comes down to it?
Right. Right. Yeah, I think it's just there's so much opportunity there. I think that shows like this, with interviews like this that are regular and predictable time wise, are going to be extremely valuable to these people as well, because they're going to need user generated content that's conversational as well.
For sure.
Because
For sure.
podcasting isn't going anywhere. It's huge. And one of the smartest ways for YouTube's already done it because they've made their platform available. Like you can watch all of our shows on YouTube. There's a whole playlist where you can watch Pat and Zach. I think it's cool. And so YouTube's made that very easy for me to be a podcaster on their platform. What happens if Apple and Amazon and Netflix and Peacock and some of these people now have to compete? Because what if I can upload my podcast on Peacock? I don't know that anyone's going to watch it there, by the way, but Dude Perfect, people might actually watch Dude Perfect there. How much is that worth? And would they sign Dude Perfect or someone big to an exclusive deal to have the rights to that?
It's
Could
an
be a
interesting
lot of
game,
money
right?
for people to be made out there as creators. Independent creators are powerful now, bro.
No, for sure. But if they move their content to Peacock, like I doubt it would be exclusive because I'll still want them to, try to take that audience from YouTube and bring it over. They're saying that
Yeah.
YouTube market share on the actual set top on the TV continues to climb dramatically on the apps itself. So, Google, YouTube, they definitely have a lot of the viewership that's out there continues to climb.
Mm, mm.
And
Yeah, I
then
love it.
as you go forward, Unilever, who's one of the largest consumer goods brands, like conglomerates out there, owning Axe, Ben and Jerry's, Dove, Hellman's mayonnaise, and a bunch of like food and consumer products, has basically said that they're going to be pledging essentially 50% of their marketing budget towards creators, influencers, and social media in general. It's a lot of dollars that they're going to be, basically pushing into the market. The last reported was it's in the billions that they're spending on marketing and advertising. So that's a huge jump from what's typically been a traditional advertiser to jump over to social media. I mean, they are a global brand with a lot of distribution and a lot of products to move. So it makes sense in that regard, but it's a huge, huge leap.
Yeah, dude. I mean, this stuff is crazy incredible. Technology has bridged the gap, especially for marketers like us. Like, dude, you go to this thing in New York, or you go to this thing in Chicago, or you go to this thing in LA. And now it's
Yeah,
like when people meet you, they can immediately, because they're going to. They're going to go on Instagram, type in your name, Zach Hoffman. I'm going to look and be like, oh my gosh, this guy posts like every single day. What does that say about you to those people? And so
yeah. I
Zach's going to
mean,
have a clear advantage when he shows up in some of these rooms over the next few weeks, because his content is so consistent and so disciplined, and he's holding himself accountable, that I'm just saying, I'm like, there's a leg up in the industry now that people like Dude Perfect or Mr. Beast have,
yeah,
that people like you have, because they're consistent.
for sure,
How
for sure.
important is that for people?
Yeah, consistently being out there, posting content, being present in different areas, it's definitely critical to building different rungs to build up a business. So, yeah, I'm a fan of it, and definitely when you see the biggest advertisers in the world start to do it, what's going to be interesting is at some point they're going to bring some form of influence in-house or some form of production in-house or collaborate with an agency to produce their own shows, right? If they see this much promise in the medium in general, why let their message just go out to other people? Why not create their own influence, their own cooking shows, their own, cleaning shows, just different like tips and tricks of the trade, and start
Mm-hmm.
producing rapid fire content to really populate and gain market interest.
Well, and I think that that could be where they get exclusive. If you're Netflix or you're Peacock or you're whatever, I agree with what you said. Yeah, we don't want to turn off what a Mr. Beast or a Mr. Perfect or Dude Perfect or whatever is already doing that's working. Mr. Perfect, he was good. But what you don't want is for that freemium to stop. I think the freemium model has taken over where we give you some great stuff. And then if you're interested, you come and you spend your money on our products and services and whatever, or you just consume the videos. For the Dude Perfect guys, I mean, they're so big now that they're getting sponsored to do activities and stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And they have big celebrities that come onto the show too. They have a lot of notable athletes and others that come on to appear. And that's to get in front of their audience because they get millions of views.
Right. Right. It's crazy. It's unbelievable to watch this shift go from major networks to the power of the creator. It's wild.
For sure, for sure. And then as you move forward, a big brand that we all definitely have had an account on, or at least billion, I would say hundreds of millions, if not billions of people on Skype. It's always, basically the replacement of the telephone. They're basically going to be, Microsoft acquired them back in 2011, paid about 8.5 billion for them. I'm
Mm.
sure they use some of the tech to develop some of their other products and software, but essentially the adoption over there has dwindled. So Microsoft is reportedly going to be shutting it down. We'll see if that really happens, but yeah, they say this year in May that they should be shutting it down. And there's a bunch of alternatives that have filled that gap. In particular, we were talking WhatsApp definitely allows people to make international phone calls fairly efficiently. I don't even think they charge, and
It's totally
Skype
free
charges
as
a
long
little
as you
bit.
have a user account.
Yeah, for sure. And then so it's going to be interesting to see, how that evolves. And you also have things like Slack, which are pay for, which serve a greater purpose than, essentially what Skype was bringing to the market, which is probably part of, why they failed is the lack of purpose that, it was fulfilling as, the markets had evolved.
Yeah, I like that because I think that the technology and the communication side of Skype was really, really dope. But it's like, well, how do I utilize this? How do I integrate this? And I think that's where it became an issue, is because the integration wasn't very good.
Mhm.
It was a standalone product. You had to use that product to use that product. It didn't really go well with anything else. And so then what they did was they said, okay, well, you can connect to this call through your Skype or whatever. And then all these other programs like Zoom and all these other things came out that are way, 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 way better. And I think Skype just got bumped down to the bottom of the list. It doesn't mean it's useless. It's just not as useful because the other features got jacked. We see this a lot where people jack features and that can hurt you. Like Snapchat was the first people to ever do the vertical video thing, and then it would disappear. And so then Instagram turned that into Instagram stories. You have your Instagram story. It's just like Snapchat and it disappears. And then TikTok came out with vertical videos on a grid. And Instagram was like, all right, we'll steal that too. So you can have your Snapchat stories, which is essentially stories as Snapchat. And we'll take your TikTok and we'll make a Reels tab. So now you can do your TikToks and your Snapchats on our Instagram app. And they just renamed those features as something else, but they're the same thing as those other platforms and as those other competitors. And I think that with technology, it can be very easy to just jack somebody's feature. I remember when Live first came out. I remember when this Facebook Live thing first came out, there was no software integration. There was nothing. You can only go live from your phone. And it was like revolutionary. I think it's an
Definitely.
underutilized feature even now today. And one more thing about that, since people are using live more now than they were because there's way more tools. Well, Facebook, I don't know why they did this, but they decided that after 30 days, your lives won't remain on Facebook. They'll be deleted. I guess that's to save space or something like that.
Probably so.
All this does is go right back into what you were just talking about. Well, if my content is a freemium model, well, now you're going to have to go to my YouTube to watch the replays after 30 days anyway.
Yeah.
So now they're
No,
almost
sure.
pushing people towards YouTube and podcast platforms because you're not going to be able to watch this replay in 31 days.
Yeah, it's their purpose. They probably know the data stats behind it.
There's something there. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm sure it was driven. I'm sure there's driven through data, in regards to like what they did with the content. They know that there's probably ways to preserve like, specific ones that you want, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you can move them to
Similar
some
to
whatever
feedback.
thing. I just got some notification about it. But I found that interesting is that they want you to use the live feature more. They're encouraging it, and they built tools for us to even do these types of shows. I can tag you now. That wasn't possible a few months ago, but they're
Yeah.
not going to leave the streams up forever. I found that interesting.
Hey, well, yeah, you found a way around it.
Oh
So
yeah, totally. So, I mean, you can still go to YouTube or Apple Podcasts or whatever. But again, I think that live streaming's awesome, but you always have to think about where do I go when the stream ends so that people can get that replay value. And so YouTube is going to
sure.
continue to increase their profits on podcasters because it's really the only place for people to go outside of Spotify. 'Cause Spotify has a video feature.
Definitely. Definitely. Well,
Rock
that
and
kind
roll.
of sums up this Monday, man.
Let's do it.
Definitely, a lot going on here in marketing. Just a lot of the market just continues to evolve. There's still the fundamentals definitely still work, but definitely seeing a big evolution.
It's amazing to watch. Zach Hoffman, Pat Hilton here, Marketing Monday, Social Authority Show. You can go subscribe on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever podcasts are found to catch the replays. This live will be here for another 30 days. So go enjoy it. Enjoy your Monday and make it a winning week. We will see you on the next one.
Thank you, Pat.
Yes, sir. All right, there it is. Thanks, champ.